Welcome to Sports Beat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Wednesday, October 28th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Missouri and Florida are set to play on Saturday in Gainesville. Well, that's the plan. It's on the schedule. But in this season of COVID-19, anything can happen. It will have been 3 weeks since the Gators last played a game because of all the positive tests, and that includes one for Coach Dan Mullen. But as of today, the game's on, and the Tigers will enter with the confidence of 2 straight victories. Beat writer Souichi Terada joins me to discuss the game and the recent Mizzou performances. After a break, you'll hear from Patrick Mahomes and his meeting with reporters earlier today. Right out of the gate, he was asked about the prospect of Kansas City becoming the temporary home of the Toronto Raptors. Busy show, so let's get started with Souichi Terada. Souichi Terada joins us. It is game week, Mizzou, Florida. Looking forward to it. Souichi, there are, first of all, we know the game is going to be played, right? As of our recording this, which is around 11 a.m. on Wednesday, we're pretty sure the game's going to be played, right?
Yeah, Blair, I'm cherishing, and I think everyone is cherishing kind of every game week that goes relatively pretty normal. But yes, as of right now, we actually the media just spoke to Dan Mullen on the SEC teleconference, and, they're practicing, they're at it. Mullen said on Monday that they anticipate they'll have the 53-man minimum roster that the SEC mandates for Saturday. So as of now, it's full go ahead.
And this was a game that originally was scheduled for this past weekend, but things got shuffled around not only because of Florida's COVID situation, but Vanderbilt's as well. There was they basically had to play a musical chairs of scheduling. But anyway, it brings Florida and Missouri together in Gainesville, 6:30 kick on Saturday. I guess before we go further, we should say college football continues to be impacted by COVID. Just within the last half hour, we learned that the Wisconsin-Nebraska game scheduled for Lincoln this week has been called off because of COVID breakout with Wisconsin Badgers, and that's a game. Unlike Missouri-Florida, which they had the luxury of rescheduling, there is no room on the Big Ten schedule for rescheduling, so that game just gets scrapped, goes down as a no contest. But we're happy to report that Missouri and Florida are going to play, and this will be Florida's first game since, is it October 10th? Will it have been 3 weeks since the Gators played?
Yeah, October 10th, it's absolutely been a minute. And as Mizzou fans remember, that was the LSU game. So that's how far it was since Florida played, and that was a 41-38 loss to Texas A&M. So I'm sure they were kind of antsy a little bit to get back on the field. But yeah, Blair, like you mentioned, this game was supposed to be played October 24th, but things just had to be flipped around. Florida was affected heavily by COVID, including Dan Mullen, who tested positive, including 25 players, and 2 assistant coaches, and that those numbers are actually kind of a little bit on the older side, just because Florida's been relatively not as transparent compared to Mizzou and their numbers. So it's kind of a weird thing, just because like Drinkwood says, the SEC hasn't mandated anything in terms of whether you have to publicly release numbers or anything. That's kind of on each program, I guess. So it's kind of this weird thing where you have to just take what the information is and what they'll give you and kind of go with it. And but very luckily, like I said, game is still going on this weekend. There is still one more round of testing on Thursday, though. So though I don't anticipate, I guess, any problems as of now.
Yeah, Mullen has been asked a couple times this week, just are you going to have 53 players? Because that's the standard, right? For the conference, are you going to have 53 available? And he's assured publicly that yes, there'll be 53 players available. But it's just crazy that these are the issues that we talk about in a previewing a college football game in these days. So, but let's talk about the game and the matchup. Missouri will have the advantage, I guess, of having played last week, where Florida hasn't played for a couple of weeks, and Missouri looked terrific. They just, bottom line, they looked terrific. In beating Kentucky 20-10, the defense just dominated the Wildcats, and Missouri got enough done on the offensive side to end the 5-game losing streak to Kentucky. What were the big lessons, the revelations from that outcome, and what can Missouri take into the Florida game from there?
Yeah, Blair, it's so weird because we went from a shootout, just touchdowns, every left and right in an LSU game, and then you go to probably the exact opposite of that against Kentucky, and it was two very different styles. I was really impressed because, against good teams, you have a game plan, you have the set idea set in stone before the game, but oftentimes it doesn't go, whether that be, it doesn't go to plan just because whether that be, adjustments or just execution, or maybe the opponents are doing something a little weird or different. But no, Mizzou played it perfectly, and Drinkwitz said it after the game on Saturday, and I wrote about it just because I was so impressed because they beat Kentucky at their own game. They ran it down their throats. Larry Roundtree, the third all-time leading rusher in Mizzou history now, was more than 3,000 yards. He had a career high in rushes, and he had a couple of touchdowns, and you had all these things. And Basil we threw for more than 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against LSU. He only had, I believe 201 yard. And he was still pretty, he still threw the ball well. It was a 70% completion percentage, but he just wasn't pushing it downfield as much. So I think you look at that game and you feel great about that if you're a Mizzou fan. And I think in some ways this was more impressive than the LSU game because you kind of have to compare where Mizzou is at as a program compared to Kentucky, because Kentucky, Blair, as I'm sure you remember, a couple years ago, they were really good in 2018, and Mark Stoops has been doing something kind of Big Ten-esque, I think, in the SEC, which is kind of interesting. Geographically, it makes sense. They kind of go into Ohio and Michigan to recruit a little bit. And so he can do that, but the way their playing style is very reminiscent of the Big Ten, and he's kind of doing that in the SEC. And he's had success over the past few years, and obviously, he's been there since 2013 and took over kind of a bad Kentucky program. But the fact that Mizzou can go in, snap his 5-game losing streak to the Wildcats, and do it against a program that is supposed to be established, and this was Eli Drinkwitz's 4th game at Mizzou, I think you feel great about it. And you know what, Blair? The crazy thing is, I remember before the season, I asked Drink, what would a successful season look like? And he actually, as part of his answer, he brought up the line or the betting, the over/under win total for him, and he referenced the 2.5. Well, Mizzou's at 2 wins already. I think you look at that schedule, 6 games left. Yeah, you have Florida, Georgia in the next 2 games, but from there you got South Carolina, you got Vandy, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. Not in that order, but those, in those 4 games, in the last 4 games of the season, I think you can go at least 3-1 there. Mississippi State doesn't look as great as it did. You have Vanderbilt. I think you can easily split, South Carolina or Arkansas. So you know what? A 5-5 season looks really good if you're sitting here as a Mizzou fan right now, and even 6 wins isn't out of the realm of possibility. And I think you would be disappointed, honestly, if Mizzou goes 4-6 to end the season. I think Mizzou fans would be slightly disappointed. Whereas at the beginning of the season, you look at 4 wins, I think Mizzou fans take that. The vast majority of Mizzou fans would take that. But that's SEC football. Every week expectations change, and you're only as good as the last week. But if you keep winning games over LSU, teams like LSU and Kentucky, then you're looking really good for the rest of the season.
Depending on what happens in these next 2, I wouldn't be surprised if Missouri was favored in all 4 of those final games. So we'll see. I'm looking at the team statistics from last weekend. First downs, 26-8 in favor of Missouri. This is the one that, to me, this is the most mind-boggling that I've seen in quite a while. Number of plays, 92 for Missouri, 36 for Kentucky, and that leads to a time of possession of 43 minutes and 10 seconds for Mizzou to 16:50 for Kentucky. Those are incredible numbers, and showed a dominance at the line of scrimmage that is got to be a real positive sign for Missouri. But I wanted to go back to something you mentioned just a second ago, Souichi, that it was a Big Ten type of a game and a Big Ten type of a win, and Missouri did proved that it can win a shootout and then followed it up with this type of victory. I think that's very positive for Eli Drinkwitz. And if you had to nitpick just one little thing, and I remember thinking it at the time as I'm watching the game, that Missouri had a chance to pick up a cheap field goal to take a 2-possession lead in the second half and went for it instead and got stuffed on fourth down. And this is a program that's been pretty good on third and fourth downs this year, right? They're over 50% on third and fourth downs, but they got stuffed. And that's, I think even Drinkwitz I think he volunteered after the game that's something he should have reconsidered at the moment, that they had an opportunity to get a 2-score lead against an opponent that's just, that's grinding it out. And then, of course, Missouri's defense comes up with a 3-and-out. The Tigers turn around and get the ball back, and then they score the touchdown to make it a 2-possession lead. So anyway, let's that wraps up Missouri and Kentucky. With Florida, I mean, this is they win their first 2 games impressively, and then they get upset by Texas A&M. It looked like an upset at the time based on the rankings, but A&M, of course, has zoomed up in the rankings, has played well this season. They're a top 10 team according to the polls. What do we think of Florida? Is this? I see where they're at 13. I think last I saw was a 13-point favorite over the Tigers. What do we think here? Does this have an opportunity to be within that betting line?
Yeah, Blair. One, this is Mizzou, Florida, so weird things happen all the time. And 2, the LSU-Mizzou line was actually pretty similar. Once the game got flipped to Columbia, it was around a 14-point spread. So won't say to take Mizzou or bet on them outright or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, weirder things have happened. I think we don't really know what's up with Florida. I mean, Dan Mullen has been one pretty kind of quiet on the injury/COVID front. And he cites privacy laws, as college football coaches do, I guess. That's just what they do. But yeah, I mean, we really don't know who is going to be available for Florida. I think. I mean, there's still, COVID affects every program, and then you look at kind of the rust angle, and you just don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, when you have, because they shut down their facilities on October 13th, and then they get back into them until this Monday, a couple of days ago now. So it's just another thing to kind of keep in mind. And I think I don't know, it's a very weird game. It's very 2020-esque, right? Just because we know nothing about about Florida, and you just don't know what to expect if you're Mizzou. I mean, we know that Florida, they do a great job throwing the ball. Kyle Trask is probably one of the best SEC quarterbacks, and one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, along with Mac Jones of Alabama. So I think Mizzou, I'm curious to see how Mizzou looks, just because they show that they can win a shootout like against LSU, and they've also shown that they can win, this physically grit and grind game against Kentucky. So I think you're obviously shading a little bit more toward Florida, and I think the Mizzou defense is kind of trying to just bounce back from its first 3 games. And it's interesting, Blair, just because coming into the season, we knew what this defense could be just based on the returners and who were coming back. And everyone kind of expected that pass defense, which was one of the best in the nation last year, to kind of just continue that. I mean, sure, the cornerbacks are maybe a little bit unproven. You do have a true freshman in Ennis Rakestraw starting out there. And you lose a guy like DeMarcus Azey, who's obviously pretty important. But you brought back, Tyree Gillespie. You brought back a Joshua Bledsoe, who's just been kept making plays past couple games. And Martez Manuel is a good piece. You got Nick Bolton. Even the middle linebacker, Devin Nicholson, is looking good. And between all those pieces, I was kind of maybe a little bit amused or maybe a little surprised that the Mizzou secondary has struggled so much. And reading other people's coverage, they look at the stats and they're like, oh, this Mizzou secondary, that's kind of the weak point. And then, but you consider Ryan Walters, Mizzou's defensive coordinator's background, and he's obviously, been a secondaries coach and everything. He still does that. So, I think they're looking at this game and maybe looking at it as, we can make a potential statement here against the top 10 Florida team right at that number 10 mark. So, there's a lot of lines to look at. I think you definitely got to consider Kyle Pitts, the tight end. Drinkwitz kind of made a Travis Kelce, George Kittle kind of comparison, not player-wise, but just the way Florida uses him. So I think, obviously, the tight end is such a dangerous position when he's probably your best player. So between the 2 Kyles and a few dangerous wide receivers, I think you're looking at Florida and thinking this might be a shootout. But I really do think the Mizzou defense is going to look at this as kind of a statement and see what they can do with it.
I think Missouri's offense has an opportunity to score some points on this Florida defense, which hasn't shown much so far this year. So,
yeah. Isn't that kind of weird, Blair, that Florida has this amazing offense and just kind of a porous defense? Like, where was this, like 5 years ago?
Right. That's a flip the script when it comes to the Florida Gators. That's for sure. Okay. Hey, so we're going to, before we go to a break, we're going to hear from, first from Eli Drinkwitz. This is from his Tuesday meeting with reporters. It was something of an opening statement, or it was said during his opening statement, just addressing the team's issues with COVID and how they're down to, I believe he said it was 64. Is it 64 players, Souichi? I forgot. Something like that. So 64 scholarship players, like down an entire class. And right after that, we're going to hear from Dan Mullen, who also met with reporters in Gainesville on Tuesday, and he's talking about the long layoff. So you'll hear Drinkwitz, then Mullen. We'll take a break. And when we come back after the break, you'll hear from Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs quarterback. He met with reporters earlier today. So, Souichi, great catching up with you, and we'll do it again soon.
All right. Thanks, Blair.
Just to recap the Kentucky game, proud of our football team, proud of our staff and our players for finding a way to win and establishing their will in that game. Played as solid as a football game in all three phases as you can play. So I'm very proud of them for that. But we've turned the page. We are solely focused on Florida and this task ahead of us. It is a tremendous challenge. It's the fourth top 25 team that we're going to place in our first 5 games. I'm not sure anyone else in the country has played that tough of a schedule. For us, tremendous challenge. We're down to 64 scholarship players this week, and that really doesn't have anything to do with COVID. That has to do with injuries, NCAA, transfers, opt-outs, all the different things. So, realistically, we're a class down of scholarship football players, and that's really only 2 less than we had Saturday for Kentucky. So incredibly proud of our team and players as they face that challenge each week.
Just getting back into the flow of a game routine here. We haven't, it's been 2 weeks since we've practiced. It'll be 3 weeks between games. That's kind of not a kind of a normal deal. Usually when you have that break, you have you're playing a bowl game, but you have a very different set schedule and different organization and different planning. So, for us, just getting our guys back into the regular game week routine, and we'll try to do that today.
Thanks, Dan. Pat.
Yeah, Dan, does it almost feel like you're restarting the season in terms of almost like it's a new opening day? Because now it's 7 straight Saturdays, hopefully.
Yeah, not really. Because we've played some games already, so we're kind of beyond that part of it. Basically this is right around where we're going to have a bye anyway. So, you're kind of treating it as coming off the bye week is kind of how I view it. We're coming back from a bye week is where we're kind of playing it as.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Herbie Tiopi. Go ahead, Herbie. Hey, Patrick, just a question off the football field. And I know you took to social media and made a pitch somewhat to the Toronto Raptors, but with the city yesterday not making a formal pitch, what would your sales pitch be to the Raptors to come here?
Yeah, obviously Kansas City's a great spot for any franchise to be at. If you look at the support that the Royals have
the Chiefs, Sporting KC, and everyone else that plays out here. I mean, the fan base is crazy, and they love sports, and they love to be here. And if you look just down the road at Lawrence, and you see the way the Jayhawks, how they pack out that place every single week, you know that the T-Mobile Center or whatever would be a great spot for any basketball franchise to be at.
Let's go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Patrick. I wanted to ask you something you said after the game. You made a reference to yourself as the young Patrick would have forced the ball down there. You remember talking about a certain play in the Denver game. And I wanted to ask you, now that you're an old man, do you think there'd be a lot of plays that you'd look back at from your earlier in your career, the first few games, and say, boy, I wouldn't do that now? Or do you think there wouldn't be a lot of plays like that? And Brad, I'll have one quick follow-up too.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, I think there's plays when I watch back. I mean, you watch back games of me playing early in my career. There's some throws that I wouldn't have made because they were dumb decisions at the time, but there's some throws that I hope that I still do make. And so it's kind of playing with that fine line of being aggressive as you possibly can, but not being overly aggressive. And so I try to look back on every experience and learn from it. And I think there's a lot of positive as long as some negatives that I can learn from.
Okay, and on the second matter, the Jets showed some interest in you when you were coming out in the draft. If I'm not mistaken, you went up there for a visit before the draft. They had one of the top 10 picks that year. Did you feel like they were serious? Did you feel like there was a significant chance you might be going to New York?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought there was interest there. I mean, whenever you get on those visits, you know that they're pretty interested in doing their due diligence. So, I mean, I definitely thought there was interest there, but at the time, they drafted a great player in Jamal Adams, and I mean, you can't really argue with that one.
Let's go next to Dave Scretta. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Pat, this is sort of an oddball question too, but I'm curious who cleaned the paint off your dog's feet on that gender reveal, and then kind of more importantly, why is it important for you to put yourself out there for your fans and the public away from the field, and your fiance too, for that matter?
Yeah, well, the paint, it was like this water-based paint, I guess, that they got that was very easy to clean, and it didn't affect the dogs. You know, Brittany's pretty mom-like already with those dogs, so she don't want anything happening to them that way. And then for me, it's just being who I am, and I want people to show that I'm just a normal guy, just like everybody else. I just get to play football for the Kansas City Chiefs, but I'm a pretty normal guy off the field.
Let's go next with Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Patrick. So obviously, with the records, you guys have a way better record right now than the New York Jets. Just what ways are you staying on top of guys as the loudest voice to make sure we don't overlook this game?
I think people understand that in this league, you can't overlook anybody. I mean, if you watch the tape and don't look at the record, you understand that this is a good football team. It's a team where a lot of guys are making a lot of plays, and they have a lot of guys that have made plays in other spots and other teams. And so you understand that it's going to be a great challenge for us, and we have to go out there and play our best football if we want to win. And I think that's not an overstatement. That's just true and how this league works.
Let's go next to Darren Smith. Go ahead, Darren.
Hey, Patrick. First of all, congratulations on you and Tyron getting people registered to vote and getting Arrowhead as a polling location. But I had a question for you, then I have a follow-up. But have you had a chance to get out and vote yet, or do you plan on doing that on Election Day? And then also, what does success look like for you and Tyron with what you all did? Then again, I have a follow-up.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks. And then second off, I have gotten to vote, and I got to send my vote in, absentee voting, and everything like that. And then I think for us to have success is to continue to move forward. We actually are going to be able to meet with Mark here either this week or this next week, and to continue to strive to get more Black-owned businesses the support that they need. And I think it's to continue to get the conversation going up until Election Day, and then even past that with different things that we can help out the community with. And so, I mean, having many people vote is obviously the first step of right now how important this election is. But the next step is to continue to help out our community and help out the people that need the help the most.
And I'm glad you said it, because that was where I was going with in regards to, everything happening for a reason. We had the economy, the country shut down due to COVID. We saw what happened to George Floyd. Obviously, you got a chance to speak out in support of Black Lives Matter. Wondering if that hadn't happened, if you would have had the ripple effect that we got right now with you supporting that, you doing the voting thing. Again, as you mentioned, post November 3rd, what is the, how do you plan to continue to utilize your voice and your platform to affect change, not only in the African-American community, but as a community at whole, of which you are a part of?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is keeping the conversation going and then going out and taking action. And I think with this meeting that we're going to have with Mark, he's already had a lot of great ideas that he's learned from people in the community that are out there firsthand making change happen. And we'll be able to, as the Chiefs, as an organization, go in with our players and do whatever we can to help improve and impact those communities and help out as many people as possible.
We have time for a couple more guys. We'll go Nate Taylor and then Seren Petro. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Patrick. We all know that Travis leads the league right now in terms of receiving yards for tight ends, but I'm wondering, when you watch the tape of your teammate, just what comes to mind beyond just catching the football in the receiving yards?
Yeah, I mean, he does it all. I think you've seen it more and more as we haven't had Sherm these last few weeks. He's really stepped up blocking and being that kind of guy, blocking from the backfield and doing stuff like that. And he's hard for defense to account for. And so when you have guys like Tyreek and Trav and these guys that can get mismatches for other guys, it helps out the entire offense. And I think that stuff whenever you don't see these huge receiving yards, some games, you don't understand how much they're impacting the game by being the players that they are.
Let's go last to Seren Petro. Go ahead, Seren.
Patrick, I know you've talked a lot about taking what the defense gives you. That's been kind of a theme and how teams have been playing you. And you just said earlier that there's some throws there that you hope you'll make, right? The bad ones you want to get away with, but there's some throws that are there. How much do you remind yourself? Is it a process of like, now's the time to take some risk? Like, we're down, which you haven't been down much this year, obviously, but now's the time to take risk versus like maybe having to settle yourself down and remind yourself that, hey, we're up big, or everything's going well. How much is there like an internal conversation about risk reward?
I think it's before every single drive and it's before every single play. You have to know how the game flow is. If you have momentum in your favor, if you have a big league, or if it's a tight football game, and you have to make those decisions, split-second decisions, and decide if you want to take that risk or if you want to take the check down and just try to do whatever you can to keep the chains moving. And it's a battle that I have with my nature. I want to throw it and take the risk every single time. But games like the other day when we were up a lot of points, you've got to realize that you don't have to take that risk whenever your defense is playing like they are. Special teams are doing what they do. And so whenever we get in these tight situations, I'm sure I'll be able to take the risk and be able to flip it right back around.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Souichi Terada for stopping by and talking Mizzou. Links to his stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you, especially for those who want a deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? Well, you go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product, sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. If you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, just send me an email at bkirkhoff@kcstar.com and I'll get you to the right place. Whether it's a Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like Sports Beat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Thursday with another episode.